Are you confused about all the various portrait editing software on the market and not sure which one to choose? Well, in this video, you'll see 5 portrait editors go head to head and see which one comes out on top. We're going to look at Lightroom Classic, Luminar Neo, PortraitPro, On1 Portrait AI, and Portraiture. Hi, I'm Darlene with Digital Photo Mentor. I've been editing photos for over 27 years, and I'm going to show you how to demystify portrait editing. If you want to get great results without spending a fortune on software or taking years to master it, you're in the right place. I'll give you my recommendations on which one I think is likely the best for you, as well as which one I use most often. So if you're ready, let's get started. First, let's take a look at each one, who makes it, the cost, and some of the main features. I have purposely left Photoshop out of this comparison because while you can, of course, do portrait editing with it, there's a steep learning curve that comes along with that, and it takes a long time to master. So if you want to get up and running and editing your portraits quicker, I would recommend looking at some of these other options. Let's start with Lightroom. If you already have an Adobe subscription and you have Lightroom, you can start there. This is what I do in my workflow. All my basic edits for color, contrast, sharpness, and brightness are all done in Lightroom. But if you want to continue without any additional software, there are tools in Lightroom to do that, namely the new masking tools. It allows you to select people and get more specific than that. You can select just the person, the entire person, or just parts, such as facial skin, body skin, eyebrows, lips, teeth, and so on. This is a great improvement over previous versions of Lightroom. So if you have an older one, you might want to upgrade. Lightroom also comes with some adaptive portrait presets already built in for you, such as Enhance Eyes and Polish Portrait. And you can see that simply by clicking on them, the masks have been applied and some settings to each mask adjusted. Lightroom and Photoshop combined make up the Adobe photography package, which is $9.95 US per month. The only option you have for purchasing Lightroom is the monthly or annual subscription. Next, let's take a look at some of the options that you can use as plugins or in conjunction with Lightroom and Photoshop. The first one that I use a lot is Luminar Neo. It operates as a standalone software if you don't have Adobe products, or you can use it as a plugin, as I mentioned. I usually open from Lightroom as a smart object in Photoshop, as you can see here, and from there you can evoke the Skylum Luminar Neo plugin. This path to get to Luminar Neo is a truly non-destructive editing workflow. So if you ever need to go back and change anything, you can. Luminar Neo is made by the folks at Skylum, and you can purchase it either outright with a lifetime license or with a subscription model and pay monthly. I recommend the monthly plan, which is $9.95, and you get all the extensions as well, which allow you to do things like HDR, focus stacking, and more. Inside the interface, you can see that there are quite a few presets available in different categories, including portrait. As well, I have a set of presets in the Skylum Marketplace called Fabulous Faces. By simply clicking on a preset, sometimes you can get almost all the way there without doing any adjustments. This is one that I made called Perfect Headshot. You can see it's doing a pretty nice job right out of the gate. If you don't want to use a preset, there are tools built into Luminar Neo specifically for portraits. Portrait Bokeh AI to blur the background, Face AI to adjust face light, eyes, and mouth, and Skin AI to smooth and adjust skin imperfections. I find that it does a really nice job and it's quick and easy to use. That's why it's an integral part of my portrait editing workflow. The next software on the list is called PortraitPro 23, or sometimes known as PortraitPro Studio. It's made by Anthropics. You can purchase this program outright, but it's a tiered pricing structure, meaning you have to decide which level is right for you. The standard or least expensive doesn't give you the option of editing RAW files, nor does it allow you to use it as a plugin. So you can only edit JPEGs in the standalone program. If you want to edit RAW or use it as a plugin, I recommend the Studio version. That's what I ended up purchasing for myself just so I could make this video. If you need the power of batch processing, then you're going to have to bite the bullet and get the most expensive option. The reason I ended up purchasing it was because I couldn't export or save any images to show you the final results in the trial version. This is what it looked like, and I had to take a screenshot. To open PortraitPro, I did the same thing as I did with Luminar Neo, sent it to Photoshop as a smart object, and applied it as a smart filter. Let's open it up and take a look at the interface. One thing I found is that it's a little bit slow in opening compared to some of the other programs. One of the neat things about this software is it does an image map of the face, and you can see where the spots are selected. If it gets it wrong, you can just simply adjust the points so it's more accurate in defining the features. Applying the edits is simple. You can just choose one category and go through the various different sliders and set it to your taste. There's lots of different options here, including shape, skin smoothing, lighting and coloring. I'll just turn each one on and off to show you what I've done here. You'll notice with shape, it does actually shift the shape and perspective of the face. I'm not a huge fan of this kind of editing, so that's kind of a negative for me, but you can keep it down to a minimum or subtle. Zooming in a little bit, you can see that the skin smoothing does a nice job of distinguishing the difference between blemishes and freckles, which is why I selected this image. Lighting and coloring is a great addition here in terms of creating some sculpting on the face. This is something that none of the other softwares really do. You can also add or alter makeup. Again, I'm not a huge fan of doing that kind of thing, but it's here if you're doing glamour or fashion, that kind of portraits. You can even do things like adjust the expression and give her more of a smile or a surprised look. Like Luminar Neo, it also allows you to save presets or use ones that are already built into the program. When looking at the before and after, we'll see a few more examples of different images run through all the different softwares for comparison, but you'll notice on this one, the girl's face looks completely different. This is not the kind of editing that I enjoy doing and that I like to produce, so I tend to go with Luminar Neo, and that is my main portrait editor. The next photo editor is On1 Portrait AI. It's made by On1. You can purchase it outright for around $70, or if you want to go with a monthly subscription, you can buy On1 Photo Raw and get all of the extensions, including the Portrait AI, for $6 and some change per month. Once again, along with Luminar Neo and PortraitPro, this one can also be a standalone application or work as a plugin for Lightroom and Photoshop. The interface of this one looks a little bit different. They all have some sliders and tools on the right-hand side. Once again, there are some presets that you can choose from based on the subject, and you can also save your own. The thing to make note of here is that On1 Photo AI has less tools in its arsenal than the previous two that we just looked at. In my opinion, it didn't do automatic blemish removal very well, even though it claims to. I found it didn't remove the shine on the skin. It doesn't adjust body skin. You can't adjust the eye size, for example, if an eye is squinty or partially closed. You can't fix stray hairs or blur the background or change the background, which you can do as well in the previous two. So I found this one a little more limited. But if you just want to smooth the skin and brighten the face a little bit, it's a nice option if you already own On1. The last photo editor we're going to look at in this set is called Portraiture 4, made by Imaginomic. This one is only available as a plugin for Lightroom or Photoshop. So if you're looking for something standalone to do the job, this is not the software for you. It's also quite pricey, coming in at $249 US. It's quite simple to use because there aren't as many tools in this software. You'll also notice that they're on the left-hand side compared to the others on the right-hand side. You can do skin smoothing and adjust the amount. There's a few presets here, like smoothing normal, medium, or strong. And besides that, there's not much more. You can adjust the mask based on the skin tone, or add some enhancements such as sharpness, brightness, or tone. So again, it's pretty simple. There are no tools to brighten the eyes or the teeth, adjust the size of the eyes, fix stray hairs, and so on. It's just skin smoothing, that's it. So in my opinion, with its hefty price tag and limited functionality, it's not in the same ballpark as the other software. The criteria that I'm using in the next section to compare the software head to head are the following. I made a checklist of what each software can and cannot do for easy reference. I looked at things like ease of use and what functions and capabilities the software had. You could see the 29 different criteria that I put against each software and the score that each one got. Interestingly enough, out of the 29 things, Photoshop only got 26. The highest scoring was PortraitPro with 28. The only thing that it doesn't have is a liquify tool. Everything else it can do. The second highest scoring after PortraitPro was Luminar Neo with 22. It has almost all the same functions, minus a few of the face shaping and altering things like makeup addition. But for me, I don't really use those kinds of things or want them, so it was just extra stuff that I wasn't going to use anyways. Now we're going to take a look at 3 different images. I've run them through all of the software, and we're going to compare them one after the other to see how the results differ. This is a stock image that I got from Unsplash, and I've only edited a little bit in Lightroom just to brighten up the overall image. I didn't do any facial editing. So this is the original unedited face. Next, we see the Lightroom version, which is pretty good. When we compare it to the original, the skin is smoother, the eyes are brighter, and the teeth are whiter. So overall, it's not a bad option. But if you want more advanced editing, such as opening the eye that's a little bit squinty or taming down the wild hair, you're going to have to go to another solution or to Photoshop. The next version was made using Luminar Neo, and I'm really happy with this result. You can see that the eye has been opened if we go back to the Lightroom one. The hair has been tamed, and that was done with the Portrait Bokeh background tool. It's really easy to use, and you define which is the background and which is the subject. So by defining the hair as part of the background, I was able to blur it and darken it. There was no cloning done on the hair. You'll also notice that most of the blemishes have been removed as well, and that was all automatic with one checkbox. So if I had multiple images of this same girl, I could save this as a preset and easily copy and paste the edits onto all of them and get the same result. As a bonus, you can also do things like this with Luminar Neo when you have the full version, including the background AI extension. I was able to mask out the girl and replace the background with one of my own texture images. If you didn't know this wasn't the real background, could you tell? I think this is a nice bonus, and it fixes the really distracting and busy background. Next up is On1 Portrait AI. You can see that the eye is once again squinty, the hair is messy, and it didn't do quite as nice a job on the blemishes automatically. You'll notice the blemishes are gone, but I had to go in and use their retouch tool to do that. So it wasn't quite as automated as it was with Luminar. I also had to go in and do a little bit more editing on the dark circles under the eyes to lighten them, and the eyes are a little bit darker as well, if we look at the comparison. Moving on to the next one, this is PortraitPro. You can see how different her face looks. It doesn't even look like the same girl anymore. But you can see that it does indeed blur the background, and we can control the hair, the blemishes, brighten the eyes, and add a sculpting kind of light. If you don't want the face shaping, you don't have to use it. Just leave those sliders off. I just wanted to show you what's possible. The final one is Portraiture 4. As you can see, it's only affecting the skin. It's not getting the hair, brightening the eyes, or handling the blemishes. So with this first image, I've eliminated 2 of the software out of the contention of which are best. That includes this one, Portraiture 4, and the On1 Photo AI. So let's take a look at a second image in the other 3 remaining software. Let me ask you this. Are you using either of the two softwares that I just eliminated from contention? If so, tell me in the comment area below what you like about it. The second image I've chosen to work with is of a more mature lady. I wanted to see what unique challenges that this image brings to the software and how it handled them. Here's the original unedited version. Now we're looking at the Lightroom edits. You can see that it's brightened, her eyes and her teeth, and the skin is indeed smoothed. So once again, it's not bad. In all honesty, on a lot of my portraits, this is all that I do. If I feel like I need a little bit more, then I take it to Luminar Neo. So let's see that next. You'll notice the difference once again. I've blurred the background and used the background blur to also clean up the outline of the hair. You see the face is not that much different, but I have opened that left eye a little bit again as well. Another thing that I always apply in Luminar is a glow, or I like to use the Orton effect filter at the end to kind of apply an overall softness. If we go back to the Lightroom version here, take a look at her neck. Now when we look at the Luminar version, even her neck and her arms have a bit more softness to them. That's that finishing touch that I do with the glow tool. The final version of this image is with PortraitPro. You can see that the hair has also been smoothed nicely, the background has been blurred, and the eyes have a little bit more makeup as well. I did a tiny bit of face shaping, as you can see the difference between this one, which is Neo, and this one, which is PortraitPro, as well as the lighting and sculpting on the face. So there is a slight improvement here, and it's a slight difference of style. So choose the editor between one of these two that fits your style. Personally, I like a little bit more natural looking, so I prefer Neo. So one question you might be wondering is, if I purchase PortraitPro, am I going to be adding it into my workflow anytime soon? And the answer is probably not. I'll probably use it sparingly just for select jobs that need a little bit extra, but my go-to is still going to be Luminar Neo. I want to use fewer pieces of software, not more, and streamline my workflow to be a little bit simpler, not more complicated. So that's what works for me. If you'd like to try them both, there's trial versions available. To get a trial version of Luminar Neo, you have to use the link in the description area or in the pinned comment below. And remember, if you decide that you like Luminar Neo and you want to buy it, I have a discount code which is good for 10% off. Just use the code DPM10 when you check out. The PortraitPro trial is available on the Anthropic's website, and as noted previously, you can't export or save images from the trial version, and you have the watermark or stamp across the face, but it'll give you a pretty good idea of what it can do and whether or not you like the tool. So I suggest trying them both head to head and compare and see which one is best for you and your needs. I have one final example for you. This one I chose because the girl has some blemishes and imperfections in her skin, and I wanted to put the software to the test on the blemishes. So this is the original unedited image. Let's take a look at Lightroom. As expected, it smoothed the skin, but it doesn't get rid of the blemishes. If you want to do that in Lightroom, you have to use the clone tool, which is pretty easy to do, but you still have to do it manually one by one. This is the Luminar Neo image, and it handled the blemishes beautifully with just the checkbox. Can you imagine if you have an entire set of images of this girl to retouch? How much time that would save you not having to do each spot on each image? It's an enormous time saver, trust me. I was also pretty happy with the skin in this one. If we look at the comparison, here's the original and the Luminar version once again. But I didn't stop there. Once again, I decided to do a background removal and change. There really isn't anything to the background here, and it doesn't add to the image. So this is what I came up with, using an image from one of my texture packs. I blurred out the background image and made it look like a canvas. If you didn't know this wasn't photographed like this, could you tell? Now let's take a look at the final version in PortraitPro. Once again, here's the unedited raw file and the PortraitPro version. I did do a little bit of face shaping here, not a lot. I wanted to keep it subtle, but just show you what's possible. So once again, here's the original Lightroom in the edited version. It's actually done a really nice job adding a shadow under the chin and elongating the shoulders and neck. So if you have a portrait subject that has issues around the chin and neck area, that could work really well. So I have a question for you. Was all of this information useful in helping you decide on a portrait editing software? Which one are you leaning towards, or do you already have and use? Tell me in the comment area below. Let's have a discussion. My recommendation, if you are brand new to photography and especially to photo editing, my recommendation for you would be Luminar Neo. And if you are more advanced and more of a professional portrait photographer, you might want to look at PortraitPro. What I suggest is to get the trial version of both. The link for Luminar Neo is in the description and in the pinned comment below. Check them out and make a decision for yourself. If you'd like to watch another video here on YouTube, click here now.